Part 52. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 512. Or, leave here first. Menkingzi began to retreat at this time. There are many good things in the underworld, but you must have a life to get them. Rumor has it that the owner of the underworld is close to the immortal king. After several times in the current world, except for the master of Tianji, the senior took action personally, and I am afraid that no one else is a match for this person. I stay here. There is no other possibility except to be buried with the underworld. Destroy my soul calling bead, you all should stay. The lord of the underworld stands tall and motionless as a mountain. His eyes are extremely cold, like a sword from the sky, splitting the void. Wherever his eyes pass, the sky is shattered. Looking around, the underworld is the same as before, but there are few things in it. Countless figures appeared. The majestic palaces and buildings seemed to have turned into ghosts, deserted. Although the underworld was a ghost before, it is now worthy of its name. The soul-calling bead was destroyed, and all the creatures in the underworld were extinct. Mourning. There is no doubt. This is a great shame and humiliation. Once upon a time, the underworld swept across the Xianguang realm without a single opponent. Even if someone thought of a way to destroy the soul-summoning bead, no one could take action. Even if they knew that the soul-summoning bead, the pearl, is in the underworld. How many people can break in? Over the long years, even the lord of the underworld has put down his guard. In a world as powerful as the Xianguang realm, there is nothing that no one can do. In the earthly immortal realm, can it be done? Just with those cats and dogs. Just kidding. It's Clinker. The earthly immortal realm really did it? Not only did it happen, but it also allowed the underworld to operate for many years and was wasted. All the undead were almost completely wiped out. But he has worked hard for countless years. Today, even if he sacrifices blood to these people in front of him, it is still difficult to eliminate the anger in his heart. It depends on whether you have the ability to leave us behind. Taisha took a step forward and stood in front of True Lord Changsheng. It was like a rock, anchoring Wang Yang and blocking the boundless waves. With Taisha coming forward, True Lord Changsheng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. You can try. The man in the underworld said indifferently. The murderous intention was like a tide. Boom. He stepped out with one step, and the earth collapsed. The terrifying demonic power swept out in a mighty manner. Countless palaces and buildings were destroyed like white paper. Razed to the ground. Boom. The lord of the underworld grabbed it with his big hand. The black magic knife made a loud buzzing sound, turned into a stream of light, and fell into his hand. The moment he held the handle of the knife in his hand, the whole world was penetrated by a pervasive force. The murderous thoughts were completely enveloped. Endless creatures were shivering, with chills on their backs, and couldn't help but crawl on the ground. From the quasi-emperors and great emperors to ordinary creatures, this was the case. Cut. The lord of the underworld roared angrily. It shook the sky in all directions. The aura was extremely terrifying, and there was a sound of wind and thunder. The sword fell, chaos and mist surged, the sky was broken into two halves, and the entire Xianguang realm was split into two. It's like the creation of the world. The black sword light spans eternity and becomes the only one in the world. It is like a long river hanging from the sky. It is pitch black and there is no end in sight. Everything is submerged in it. At this moment, in the sky the stars all lost their color, and then exploded to pieces. One star field after another completely dimmed and lost its former glory. Taisha's face was stern, he held a long sword in his hand, and his mind reached its peak. This was a great he had never seen an enemy in his life and faced him head on. To be honest, he had no idea. He could even say that he would lose more than he would win. but even if he knew he was losing, he would still take action because the other party would not let him go so easily. If I lose, I am afraid that the entire world will face the slaughter of the underworld. No one will be spared. Sonorous. The sword light was like a rainbow. Teoshu held the sword in both hands, and the whole person turned into a majestic sword mountain, bright and boundless, and like a sword lotus, blooming in the void. Layers of sword light filled every inch of space in the void, the sharp sword light almost cut everything apart, it was indestructible and unstoppable. Boom! The sword light and the sword light collided together, with a sonorous sound, the universe roared, and the entire Xianguang world was shaking violently. Countless cracks spread in all directions. At this moment, the Xianguang world seemed to be disintegrated. Everywhere. They were all cracks, like abysses, extremely terrifying, exuding the aura of destruction. Countless famous mountains turned into powder at this moment. Bang! After the blow, the aftermath has not dissipated. A figure grunted and flew out quickly. Teoshu's face turned pale, and the palm of his sword was trembling. It was just one blow. He was already at a disadvantage. And he had already attacked with all his strength just now, but he couldn't guarantee how much strength the underworld's initiative used, 7th level or 8th level. What is certain is that the opponent must have retained some of his strength. If this is true, I am afraid that today will be dangerous. Get on the road. You have good strength. After you die, I will grant you eternal life and make you a warrior in the underworld. Strode forward from the underworld, and the cold words echoed between heaven and earth. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 513. It is too early to draw conclusions now. Before, the underworld under your command was once arrogant and thought that victory was within reach. Hasn't that become history now? As for you, you will inevitably end up defeated sooner or later. Teoshu spoke. He stood in the sky, and the sound of clattering came. 108 long swords flew out from the Zi mansion and lined up outside, forming a huge formation that suppressed the four ends of the world. It isolates all areas with a radius of millions of miles. It is as if people are in another world. This is a terrifying formation, created by Teoshu himself. It is infinitely powerful and contains unparalleled murderous intent. The boundless chaos shook. The end of defeat. The Lord of the Underworld's eyes were stern. He glanced sideways at Teoshu and said indifferently, "Do you rely on this formation of yours? Simply vulnerable." As soon as he finished speaking, the Lord of the Underworld took action. He was glowing, burning, and impacting in the formation. His speed was extremely fast, and he seemed to be able to travel through space. Behind him, there were billowing monsters escaping, and a thunderous sound was emitted from them. The roar of the earth was as if there were endless gods and demons coming from another world across time and space. It was extremely terrifying. Every time he impacted, there was a deafening roar, making the formation shaky. At this moment, the Lord of the Underworld seemed to have transformed into an ancient wild beast, invincible, running wildly in the formation, causing the sky to shatter, the sun and the moon to lose light, and the stars to explode. Teoshu's face turned pale, and he leaned against the formation to compete with the opponent. But even with the blessing of the formation, he was still at a disadvantage. The strength of the Lord of the Underworld was too terrifying. There was a full level difference between the two, and it was difficult to compete with him. This battle was shocking. For eternity, whether it is the Xianguang realm, the earthly immortal realm, or the very distant Tianyuan realm, all have sensed the fluctuations of this confrontation. The supreme aura swept across the 8 wastelands, making every living being tremble with fear. Characters in the immortal realm, having completely entered the threshold of immortality, it is not that simple for them to decide the winner, even if they are not as good as each other in the beginning. But in a short period of time, they can have a stalemate. After a long time, it may not be possible. And the Lord of the underworld, in addition to washing away today's shame, he also wanted to break through to the realm of the immortal king. Therefore, he wanted to fight quickly and did not want to be supported by Taishu. Therefore, this battle was extremely fierce, and the blood contained the aura of immortality. Spread all over the void, very sad and beautiful, making everything in the world eclipse it. Every drop of blood falls, automatically becoming a forbidden area on the earth. No one dares to be contaminated, even if they are very greedy, they dare not come close, because even if even a drop of blood was enough to kill a great emperor. The war continued. 3 days later, the Lord of the underworld was resurrected like a demon god, flying around the world, with black hair flying in all directions, and his movements were filled with heaven-shaking power. He collapsed, shattered the sword formation and returned to the outside world. Moreover, it shocked Taishu so much that he coughed up blood. How? The Lord of the underworld shouted and asked, "What other methods do you have? Let's use it together, otherwise you won't have a chance. It's just a formation that you broke, and you can't kill me." When Taishu drank, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, his whole body glowed, and his sword energy soared into the sky. He turned into a green dragon, condensed from the sword light, and rushed over with his head and tail swaying. He forcibly knocked back the Lord of the underworld a few steps. The war started again. Open. A wound finally appeared on the Lord of the underworld. As soon as the blood splashed, the wound healed quickly, as if he was immortal. His eyes were cold, and he shot out with his backhand, crushing the long green dragon into pieces. Then, without stopping, he rushed in front of Taishu, made a seal with one hand, triggered the 9-day wind and thunder, and rumbled down, turning the area within billions of miles into a sea of thunder. The rolling thunder turned into Wang Yang, drowning everything. No one can be spared. Not even the true Lord Changsheng and Meng Qingzi cannot escape. Seeing this scene, the eyes of true Lord Changsheng are extremely horrified. Although this is just a killing move to deal with Taishu, it has affected himself. He has absolutely no chance. There is no way to escape. After all, this is a person at the peak of the immortality realm who is attacking with all his strength. As a true immortal, how can he resist this blow? This can be said to be a fire at the city gate, which affects Jiu. Just when he was desperate. Buzz. Suddenly, the void trembled, and a powerful aura erupted. In the blink of an eye, where the underworld was originally, an extremely mysterious formation suddenly appeared, and countless symbols filled the void. Textures intertwined into a large net, covering the sky. Another formation. This formation appeared so unexpectedly that no one thought that after Taishu, there would be people setting up formations here, suddenly overwhelming Taishu. And the Lord of the underworld are all trapped inside. Who? Has another Taoist friend come to help? The expressions of the Lord of the underworld and Taishu changed at the same time. The only difference was that they were in completely different moods. The former had cold eyes and felt that his dignity had been challenged again and again. The latter was overjoyed to be able to do so without being alarmed. In the case of two people, they set up an immortal level formation. This is definitely a person of the same level. It can be expected that with the addition of a person of the same level, the master of the underworld today is probably doomed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 514. It's you. The Lord of the Underworld's eyes fell, heavier than anything, like a magic mountain falling from the sky and pressing on Meng Qingzi's body. At this moment, his eyes almost condensed into substance. If it were not blocked by the formation, I'm afraid it would be. Menkingzi was shocked into a fan immediately. Even so, he also felt very uncomfortable. Being targeted by a person at the peak of the immortality realm was the biggest dilemma he had ever encountered in his life. It seemed that the next second, he was about to be completely shaken. Menkingzi looked at the formation in front of him. This was given to him by the senior Tianji building master. Logically speaking, it should be more than enough to block a person in the immortality realm. Thinking of the strength of the senior Tianji building master, Menkingzi couldn't help but feel. He gained some courage. He took a deep breath, faced the Lord of the Underworld, and said in a deep voice without fear. Yes, it is this emperor. You are desperate and now claim to be a cultivator. Follow me to Tianji Tower. Maybe I can give you a nice word in front of the senior owner of Tianji Tower. If the senior master Tianji is in a good mood, he can spare your life. The owner of Tianji. Hearing these words, the face of the Lord of the Underworld was as gloomy as water. He glanced in the direction of Tianyuan realm, and a trace of fear flashed deep in his eyes. Long before, he had already guessed that the Lord of Tianji was an immortal. He is a king-level figure. Therefore, he has to break through the current realm at all costs. It is a pity. God is not as good as man. At the last moment, an accident occurred, and even the underworld was injured. At first, he thought this is the good luck of the people in the earthly immortal realm. Now it seems that behind this matter, I am afraid it is not that simple. It is very likely that the owner of Tianji is behind the trouble. Without his guidance, just relying on Kenteishu and a person from the true immortal realm break into the underworld and destroy the soul summoning pearl. Now even a great emperor can come up with the formation of the immortal realm. In today's world, except for the master Tianji, I am afraid that no one can have this energy. Did the owner of Tianji send you here? The Lord of the Underworld said with a cold voice. So what? So what if it's not? Menkingzi neither admitted nor denied. The four words Tianji Lozuo seemed to have some kind of magic power that could make people turn against rats. Menkingzi did not hesitate and directly sacrificed this golden sign. In his opinion, it can defeat the opponent. It's best to bluff. If you can't bluff, you can at least make the opponent throw a trap. You are looking for death. Clinker. Behind the Lord of the Underworld, visions burst out, and the supreme demonic body appeared and merged with his body, making his energy and spirit soar, making him extremely powerful. The endless anger condensed into substance, and a stream of yin-red eyes crossed the void and suddenly pressed on Menkingzi's back. With a pop sound, Menkingzi's figure fell to the ground from high altitude. His body was cracked and covered with blood. He was in a state of embarrassment for just a moment. He suddenly came back to his senses. He seemed to have messed up. The underworld was destroyed. It is estimated that the owner of the underworld is all of this was attributed to Senior Tianji Lozuo, and he carried out Senior Tianji Lozuo at this moment. How could he not provoke hatred? Die! The Lord of the Underworld shouted angrily. The magic knife in his hand stretched across the sky and fell down together. The starry sky was divided into two halves. A great destruction occurred, and the heaven and earth collapsed. The formation that Menkingzi had just laid out began to shake violently, and countless symbols appeared. Blooming with endless brilliance, condensed into a light curtain, blocking the magic knife. The two collided, and there was an earth-shattering explosion. Although the formation seemed to be destroyed at any time, it was solid blocked the blow. Any drama? Menkingzi's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. You know, this is a killing formation. Its defense is not outstanding, but it still blocked the attack of the Lord of the Underworld. What does this mean? It means that the power of this formation, far beyond everyone's expectations. The formation given by the senior master of TNG building is indeed extraordinary. Meng Qingzi murmured excitedly. Immediately, he made seals with both hands, and the entire formation rumbled, as if it had revived, seducing the laws of 10,000 ways, and condensed into a whole, with the entire Xianguang realm, as if it had become a prison. Generally, the Lord of the Underworld is bound within it. Within the boundless space, terrifying suppressive force rushes from all directions. For a moment, the Lord of the Underworld feels that his true energy movement is somewhat stagnant, and he feels as if he is carrying thousands of mountains on his back. The speed is slowed down by nearly half. Buzz. The killing array revived. Brilliance as big as stars flooded down from the sky. Their boundless power crushed the starry sky. If it were in the past, the Lord of the Underworld would not take it to heart, even if he couldn't block it, but with his speed, he could dodge it, but it was different today. In the formation, he was suppressed from all directions, and he was unable to dodge it now. Good chance. Taishu's eyes lit up. He held a long sword and soared into the sky. The light of the sword turned into a vast river, rolling towards the head of the underworld. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 515. Boom. The sword light fell. A fierce battle broke out again. Meng Qingzi activated the formation and joined forces with Taishu. The two cooperated tacitly and completely suppressed the Lord of the Underworld. The sun and moon were extinguished in this battle, and the stars and rivers turned into ashes. They fought from the sky to the ground, and countless stars were shattered by the aftermath. Large areas of the star sea turned into ashes, and the universe was so devastated that it was unbearable to look at it. The Lord of the Underworld tried to break through the formation several times and escape. But it was a pity that they were blocked by Taishu, so he had to deal with this battle with all his strength. I don't know how long it took. A tragic roar came. The blood mist swept across the sky, staining half of the sky with blood. Red, the Lord of the Underworld was chopped down by Taishu's sword, half of his body was chopped into pieces. The blood was flowing like a stream, and the bones were thick. Even the magic knife in his hand was blown away. This is him. After breaking through to the realm of immortality, it was the first time that I had fallen into such a miserable situation. If I hadn't dodged faster just now, more than half of my body would have been chopped into pieces. It was estimated that my head would have been cut off. The Lord of the Underworld roared and reorganized his body, but how could Taishu give him this opportunity? Sonorous. The sword light illuminated the sky and the earth, and the boundless sword energy turned into Wangyang and flooded forward mightily, tearing it apart. Like Ling Qi, the figure of the Lord of the Underworld was beaten to pieces. Blood mist. This scene shocked everyone, especially the Xianguang realm. In the past, the underworld swept across the entire world, and its power was unparalleled for a while. To this day, they still vaguely remember the supreme grace of the Lord of the Underworld. But this has just passed. How long did it take? The situation was completely reversed. The Lord of the Underworld was actually chased and beaten, and was almost suppressed. This is simply incredible. Bang! Taishu tore the Lord of the Underworld apart and turned into a blood mist, bathed in the blood of immortality. He was like a god of war, standing under the void, quite invincible. He was suppressed by the Lord of the Underworld just now and was even almost killed. The scene is gone forever. At this moment, Taishu himself seemed to be in a dream. He took a deep look at Meng Qingzi. Now he has seen that Meng Qingzi's strength is only at the level of the great emperor. Such a person, those who dare to set up a killing array in front of the gate of the underworld probably don't have the guts. Only the master of Tianji Hall can give him some guidance. Come to think of it, what Meng Qingzi said just now is right. Behind him is indeed the master of Tianji Hall, and only Tianji Hall master. Only the original poster can easily come up with an immortal realm-killing array. The supreme force that swept across the Xianguang realm didn't expect to encounter the senior Tianji building master. With casual guidance and a killing array, it was easily solved. Taishu was filled with emotion in his heart. If it were back then, the Xianguang realm had the senior Tianji building master sitting in charge, how could the underworld rise? If the senior Tianji building master had personally taken action, the underworld might not even be able to turn over a single wave. Powder. Wow. The sound of running water comes to mind. Blood-colored torrents, like spider webs, cover the sky. They are dazzling and dazzling, carrying the aura of immortality. They gather together and turn into a sea of blood. In the middle, there is a majestic figure, condensed out. This person is the Lord of the Underworld. Even the Emperor is difficult to kill, let alone the Lord of the Underworld. Although his body was blown up several times, his origin was not injured. He recovered after adjusting his breath a little. He has gained 7 or 8 points of strength. Now that his body has been recast, he still has the strength to fight. Taishu, the owner of Tianji. The day I become the immortal king is the day you become the dead soul under the sword. The Lord of the Underworld roared, with a wildness in his voice that made the sky tremble. All creatures on the earth were prostrate on the ground, not daring to raise their heads. Taishu looked at the other party with stern eyes and murderous intent steaming from his body. The 4 words Tianji Luzu have occupied an extremely important position in his heart. After all, without Tianji Luzu, the Tianyuan world cannot be saved. Just take today. He said that he might have perished on the spot. It could be said that the owner of Tianji Tower was their savior. How could he bear it when his savior was so slandered? At that moment, the war started again. Time passed. The two fought. Passing through the world, but not breaking the formation, he fought from one area to another, fighting all the way until the sun and moon were dim, and the stars were dim. A few days later, Taishu shouted loudly, and together with Menkingzi, the formation was at this moment, it seemed that he had merged with Taishu. His whole body was sublimated to the extreme, and his energy and spirit were raised to the peak. His blood and energy were like Wang Yang, powerful in all directions. A long sword suppressed the 4 poles and chopped down towards the Lord of the Underworld. Boom! Under the light of the sword, countless people saw the scene of the Lord of the Underworld struggling. In the past, he would have been able to dodge if he couldn't block it, but now he has the constraints of the formation. He can only block it forcefully. Sonorous. The sound of the jingling of gold and iron came out, like a big yellow bell, piercing the void, suppressing the chaos, like a stormy wave crashing on the shore, causing all the stars to explode. The Lord of the Underworld's whole body exploded completely, in all directions under the weakening, he could no longer hold on. His body was wiped out, and only a divine soul escaped, turning into a stream of light. He rolled up the magic knife in his hand, took advantage of the gap in the vibration of the formation, and quickly slipped out. Disappeared in between heaven and earth. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 516. Did you run away? Taishu looked at the direction where the Lord of the Underworld left, and for some reason, he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Then, his face turned pale, without a trace of blood. The battle had been going on for so long. Although, relying on the killing formation controlled by Menkingzi, he has the upper hand, but his condition is not good at the moment. If the battle continues, it is still unclear who will live and who will die in the end. Now that the Lord of the Underworld leaves, it is considered the best thing. At the very least. The body of the Lord of the Underworld has already been shattered and the foundation was damaged, so it was impossible to come out in a short time, and he only needed a little recuperation to recover most of his combat power. More importantly, the Lord of the Underworld left, but the foundation of the Underworld for many years, but he stayed here. After mastering these things, it is estimated that he can easily find the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld from the senior TNG building master, as long as the Lord of the Underworld has not completely recovered. Teishu is confident that he can defeat him head-on. Senior. The true monarch of immortality flew over from a distance, with a vigilant look on his face, and his consciousness was locked in the void. He came to the front and back of Teishu and asked softly. Senior, are you okay? Fine. Teishu waved his hand, indicating that it was okay, and said in a deep voice, it's a pity that the Lord of the Underworld was not left behind, allowing such a powerful enemy to escape. If we can't find him before he recovers from his injuries, I'm afraid the next time we meet, the Lord of the Underworld will be a fairy king level existence. The strength of the Lord of the Underworld is obvious to everyone present. He is obviously superior to Teishu. You must know that Teishu is already a person at the peak of the immortality realm. He is stronger than him. The Lord of the Underworld can say that he is infinitely close to the immortal king. It's not too much at all. If the other party can really become the immortal king, God knows how much trouble it can cause. It's possible. The entire Earth immortal realm, plus the Zhixian realm and Tianyuan realm, will not be able to escape disaster. Without further ado, Senior, how about we catch up? The immortal lord said quickly. I'm afraid it's too late. Teishu shook his head. In the current killing formation, he could barely keep up with the speed of the Lord of the Underworld. Once he left the formation, the Lord of the Underworld left the Xianguang realm in a matter of seconds. No one knows, where is he now? Maybe the other party is in the Tianyuan world, maybe he has gone deep into the chaos. It is almost impossible to catch up. That's okay too. Immortal. Lord Changsheng quickly reacted and said with a relaxed expression, with the master of Tianji here, even if the Lord of the Underworld escapes to the ends of the earth, we can still find him. Good. Teishu nodded. The Lord of the Underworld has been severely injured by me. Within 1,000 years, he will not be able to fight. Speaking of this, Teishu suddenly realized that he could fight the Lord of the Underworld this time, but thanks to the help of a great emperor. After all, without the other party, and with the formation given by the senior Tianji building master, I might have fallen today. Okay, thinking of this, he quickly looked down. Not far away from the two of them, he saw Meng Qingzi's figure like lightning, shuttling through the collapsed palaces, pulling out some from the broken walls from time to time. What? Just now, Meng Qingzi put away a sharp long sword in front of the two of them. This long sword has an ancient charm and is like ink. It is made of an unknown material, but it is extremely strong and can be used in the beginning and the underworld. In the aftermath of the battle between the two masters, it was preserved, and it is not an ordinary product no matter how you look at it. Get rich. Meng Qingzi's eyes were completely shrouded in surprise. He had known for a long time that the underworld had swept across the Xianguang realm, and its background must be extraordinary, but he did not expect it to be so terrifying. Now, the treasure house of the underworld has not been found, just in the ruins. I found a lot of magic treasures from the true immortal realm, and even some treasures from the immortal realm. It can be said that I made a lot of money today. With these things, I can completely use them when I return to the Tianyuan realm. I bought the killing formation in my hand, and after today's battle, the formation given to me by the senior master Tianji. There is no need to question it at all. Even the Lord of the Underworld cannot break it. In the future, the 9 Nether Demon sect will have this formation to protect it. I want to ask who else dares to go to Juyu Demon sect and act recklessly. I'm afraid that even if Teishu goes there in person, once the formation is opened, he can never return, right? What's this? Thinking about the beautiful picture of the future in his heart, Meng Qingzi's expression suddenly changed. From the corner of his eye, he saw a gray ball in a corner not far away, lying there quietly. Just now, he saw that there was a flash of green light on the surface of the ball. But when he looked at it, the ball returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Meng Qingzi almost thought that he had seen it wrong. It must be a baby, right? Meng Qingzi stretched out his palm and took the ball over. From the surface, there was nothing special about it. It was just like an ordinary bead. Moreover, there were several cracks on it and it was almost broken. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like a treasure, but it could be preserved in a big battle. Meng Qingzi intuitively told Meng Qingzi that the origin of this bead is probably not simple. That's all. I will take it back first and then ask the senior owner of Tianji building. The senior must know what this bead is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 517. Fellow. A call came from the sky. Teishu and Immortal Lord walked hand in hand and walked over step by step. Hearing the sound, Meng Qingzi's expression changed, he flipped his hands, and quickly hid the ball in his hand. The formation he had set up before had not yet been dismantled. First, it was to prevent the Lord of the Underworld from killing a carbine. After all, the strength of the Lord of the Underworld is obvious to all. If the opponent comes back again, without the protection of the formation, all of them except Teishu will fall. Meng Qingzi asked himself, he would definitely not be able to stop the other party from looking at him. Secondly, keeping the formation is of great benefit to him. After all, the formation can isolate detection, and even the immortal consciousness will be blocked. He is like a fish in water in the formation. To put it bluntly, even Teishu couldn't see what good things he had taken. In this way, it also avoided the possibility of Teishu becoming interested in Cai. Using himself to save others, Meng Qingzi felt that he might be interested in Cai, and he was in his eyes. Whether it is Teishu or Immortal Lord, it is possible to do this. After all, any one of these two can completely torture him. So he has to be on guard. What's wrong with you two? Meng Qingzi put away the ball, turned around, cupped his hands in a leisurely manner, and asked. Nothing. Teishu shook his head slightly, returned the courtesy, and said the two of us are just here to thank you for your generous actions. If it weren't for the formations arranged by fellow Taoists, I'm afraid both of us would be in danger today. That's it? Meng Qingzi raised his hand and stroked his beard. His old face felt a little hot. He still knew how much he weighed. Are they here to thank him? It is correct to say that he is thanking the formation next to him. Without this formation, even if there are 10,000 Meng Qingzi, they probably won't be enough for the Lord of the Underworld to kill with one finger. If you're grateful, don't say it. Meng Qingzi waved his hand and said with shame, I only received the favor of Senior Tianji Building Master to obtain this formation. Without Senior Tianji Building Master, even if I came down, it would just be one more dead soul. Hearing these words, Teishu and Changsheng Zhenjun exchanged a look with each other, and both of them showed the same look in their eyes. They had already guessed that it was the Senior Tianji Building Master who was secretly helping. Today, I saw it. Sure enough, it was so. In today's world, who else can easily severely injure the Lord of the Underworld without showing up? I'm afraid only the Master of Tianji can do it. It seems that everything that happened today was as expected by the Senior Master Tianji, but I am a little disappointed. Teishu shook his head and said with a wry smile. Before he came with the determination to die. After all, Going deep into the underworld lair and being able to destroy the soul-calling pearl would be considered a blessing. As for leaving alive, he didn't even think about it. I dare not think about it. Isn't it a proper local government's own back garden? Come and leave whenever you want? The senior owner of TNG building naturally has all the plans. Meng Qingzi said respectfully. After he finished speaking, he glanced at the ruins of the wall next to him, and said with a chuckle, I still have some things to do, so I won't talk more. You two please do it yourself. Fellow. At this time, the immortal lord took a step forward, stopped in front of Meng Qingzi, and said in a deep voice, although the underworld is destroyed now, the owner of the underworld is still there, and there are still many residual formations in the underworld. Fellow Taoists should be careful. I understand this naturally. Meng Qingzi nodded. This is one of the reasons why he did not withdraw from the killing formation. With his own formation, he can be said to be like a fish in water in the underworld. Even if he takes the initiative to die, it will not be a big problem. Correct. As if the immortal Lord remembered something, he asked again, have you ever seen the soul-calling pearl, fellow Taoist? Previously, Senior Taishu and I had destroyed 6. But there are 7 in total in the underworld, and there is only 1 left at the moment. This soul-summoning bead can bring people back to life, and it is immortal. The threat is not small. If it is not destroyed, I am afraid that it will cause a person to die. The world is completely in danger. The history of a world is too long. No one can be sure how many people the soul-summoning bead can resurrect. Even if it is only a small part, it is terrifying enough. There is no immortal king-level figure sitting in charge. There is no doubt about the soul-summoning bead. A big killing weapon. In the eyes of the immortal lord and others, this kind of thing cannot be left behind. Soul-calling pearl. Meng Qingzi's eyes wandered for a moment. He thought of the round bead he had just picked up, and he couldn't help but murmured in his heart. Could that bead just now be a soul-calling bead? How could his luck be so bad? If fellow Taoists see it, it would be best to leave it to Senior Taishu to destroy it. The immortal lord said in a deep voice. How come? Meng Qingzi's expression changed and he said, how could I see that kind of thing? I guess the underworld put it somewhere important. Or are you two looking for it? Meng Qingzi can think of something like the soul-summoning bead with his toes. It is worth a lot of money. In the eyes of Taishu and others, it will be completely destroyed. But Meng Qingzi doesn't think so. After getting this thing from Tianji Tower, it is worth a long time. The opportunity of living, right? I use it to improve my strength, isn't it good for him? It's ruined like this. No matter how you look at it, it's a loss-making business. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 518. If that's the case, then the two of us will go look for it. The immortal lord did not doubt that he was there. He turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly turned around again and said, fellow Taoist, this place is not safe. After all, it is also where the underworld has been operating for many years. The lord of the underworld may come back at any time, so you'd better leave as soon as possible. Meng Qingzi's strength is still too weak after all. Even with the protection of the formation is not omnipotent. If aftermath sweeps down, the formation may be fine, but the people inside the formation will be violently shocked to death. I understand. Meng Qingzi cupped his hands and said with a smile, thank you, Senior, for reminding me. The immortal lord nodded. He took a deep look at Meng Qingzi, said no more, turned around and left here, and went to look for the soul-calling beads elsewhere. It's a pity. He and Taishu turned the entire underworld upside down. Even the treasure house was turned upside down and several were found, but there was no trace of the soul-summoning bead. Until this moment, the hearts of the two of them could not help but sink a few points. You know, the last soul summoning bead was originally but in the hands of Lu Changfeng. Lu Changfeng relied on this soul summoning bead to control the undead in the entire Earth Immortal world and even the Tianyuan world. If it is not found and destroyed, I am afraid that these worlds will continue like this. Unless there is an immortal king who takes action. At present, except for the senior Tianji building master, there is no suitable candidate. As for Taishu himself, he just thought about it. Even the Lord of the Underworld has not become an immortal king. His road to becoming the immortal king is still a little long. Senior Taishu. In a dilapidated palace, the immortal lord saw Taishu again. He took a step forward and asked, "Can you find the whereabouts of the soul-calling pearl?" Upon hearing this, Taishu did not answer, but shook his head slightly. Seeing this, the immortal lord's face froze, and then he sighed softly. What can we do? If the soul summoning pearl is not found, the immortal world and the Tianyuan world will never have peace in the future. Maybe. Speaking of which, Immortal Lord Changsheng raised his head and said the only way is to go to Tianji Tower and ask the senior owner of Tianji Tower. Maybe he has a way to find the only remaining soul-calling bead. There are a lot of resources in the underworld, but most of them were destroyed in the previous battle. The remaining resources now still need to find the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld. Taishu spoke slowly. He didn't finish what he said, but the implication was self-evident. The previous battle was so brutal that even the sky was shattered. Naturally, the underworld, which was in the center of the battlefield, could not escape disaster. It could be said that it was almost razed to the ground. Fortunately, the formation set up by Menkingzi left something behind. But even with the formation, not much was left. More than 70% of the items were destroyed into powder, and the remaining items were divided equally between the three of them. This amount of resources is an extremely huge resource for the three of them. But in exchange for the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld, the three of them didn't have much confidence. After all, news from Tianji Tower is notoriously valuable. Not to mention the Lord of the Underworld who is responsible for the inheritance of the Underworld. Probably. After purchasing the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld, the soul summoning bead is about to miss the two of them. If the soul summoning bead cannot be found, how long will it take to deal with those immortal undead souls? Senior, tell me, will the soul-calling pearl be taken away by the Lord of the Underworld? The immortal lord asked softly. Although, he really didn't want to see this situation. After all, the soul-calling bead fell into the hands of the Lord of the Underworld. No one is sure how much trouble it will cause. But at the moment, it doesn't matter. Questions are good news. Because finding the Lord of the Underworld means finding the last soul-calling bead. Probably small, but not impossible. Taishu shook his head slightly and said uncertainly. Maybe. Taishu glanced at the outside world and said softly, why did the last soul-calling bead fall into the hands of one of our own people instead of the Lord of the Underworld? How can this be? At the first moment, the immortal lord wanted to deny that he didn't get it among the people present, and Taishu didn't get it, who else could it be? But then, his body shook, and he followed Taishu's gaze and looked outside. In the past, there was the back of Menkingzi wandering among the ruins. He asked a little doubtfully, Senior, do you mean that the last soul-calling bead was picked up by this fellow Taoist Menkingzi? Maybe. Taishu said plausibly. At this time, Menkingzi, who was collecting resources, was very busy. The storage ring in his hand could hardly fit in it, but he still couldn't hide his enthusiasm. He had found something better, and he just needed to throw away the worst things. It can still free up some space. In just half a day, all 10 storage rings were filled. When they were brought back to the Tianyuan realm, the 9 Nether Demon sect would definitely soar into the sky. At that time, It is not easy for the Nine Nether Demon sect to train several great emperors. Even if time allows, cultivating a few true immortals will not be able to use up so many resources. It can be said that Menkingzi's future will not have any threshold before the true immortals. Thanks to the senior TNG building master, otherwise how could I, Hida, be where he is today? Menkingzi murmured to himself. Just when he was immersed in fantasy. Suddenly. Boom. A shocking loud noise came from the edge of time. The entire Xianguang realm was shaking violently, as if the end of the world was coming, making countless people panic. In the prototype of a huge world, a vague outline appeared in the chaos. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 519. What's going on? Menkingzi was stunned. At this moment, he didn't even bother to collect the resources in the underworld. He stared at the scene in the distance blankly, and it took a long time to slowly react, and murmured in his mouth, this is again a new world. World fusion. It is no longer a strange thing for the creatures in the Tianyuan world. After all, they have seen it many times. But every time the world fuses, it does not mean a good thing. There is the Earth Immortal world, Zixuan, a lesson learned from the world. There is the Xianguang realm. Every time the world merges, it will cause an uproar, and now the Xianguang realm has just been dealt with. Another brand new world has come. Senior TNG building master, is this going to kill us all? At this time, not only Menkingzi, but also Taishu and Changsheng Zhenjun were on the verge of crying. Taishu was better off. After all, his hometown was in the Tianyuan world, so he was not the first to bear the brunt, but Changsheng Zhenjun felt uncomfortable because this world seemed to have appeared in the junction of the earthly immortal realm and the Xianguang realm. This also means that soon, this new world will connect the Xianguang realm and the earthly immortal realm. By then, won't their earthly immortal realm be attacked again? Finished. It's all over. The immortal Lord Changshen's eyes were lifeless, with a look of despair. Although the earthly immortal realm is not weak, it depends on what world it is compared with. Compared with the Tianyuan realm, it still has some advantages. But compared with a world like the Xianguang realm, there is no comparison. Senior, what should we do? The immortal Lord Changsheng looked back at Taishu and said hopefully. Taishu was speechless. At this time, to be honest, he didn't know what to do. After a long time, Taishu murmured, maybe I have to ask the senior TNG building master. After all, no one can figure out his thoughts. He should not force other worlds into despair. But the immortal lord was about to speak but stopped. He really wanted to say that at the moment, the senior TNG building master has forced other worlds to a dead end, and the lord of the underworld has not yet been solved. At this critical moment, another world comes. Just in case. This new world, without knowing the truth, is about to disrupt the situation. I am afraid that all their previous efforts will be in vain, and the Lord of the Underworld can also take the opportunity to regain his strength. When the Lord of the Underworld comes back, no one will be able to resist it. There's nothing good about it. I seem to have some knowledge of this world, and it has a familiar atmosphere. Taishu's eyes crossed the void, penetrated hundreds of millions of miles, and penetrated deep into the chaos. He took a general look at the vast world on that side. Just this glance made him relax a lot. He said slowly, if my guess is correct, this world seems to be one of the three worlds that was originally divided into three parts of the Tianyan realm. It also has the same origin as the Xianguang realm. Senior knows this world. Emperor Changshen's eyes lit up. What he fears most is that his eyes will be darkened and he will know nothing about the merged world. No one knows the attitude towards them in this world. If it doesn't go well, it will be the same as in the Xianguang realm. When the underworld covers the sky with its hands, it will be all over. It's only limited to knowing. Taisha nodded and said softly, this world, if I read it correctly, should be the Sumeru realm. In the past, I was traveling in chaos and inadvertently entered the Xianguang realm. I knew a little bit about the history of the Xianguang realm. The two realms came from the same source and were equally powerful. In the Xianguang realm, the underworld suddenly emerged, and many people wanted to go to the Sumeru realm to ask for help. Unfortunately, those who asked for help had to go forward, but the people from the underworld broke the space channel on the back. It is precisely because of this that the Sumeru realm and the Xianguang realm lost contact. Oh! Hearing this, the immortal lord raised his brows, breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, and murmured, these two worlds actually have such a connection. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that the Sumeru realm doesn't have much favorable impression of the people of the underworld? Good. Taisha nodded and said in a deep voice, the underworld is the formidable enemy of all heavens and all realms, and the Sumeru realm is naturally unavoidable. That's good. The immortal lord is completely relieved. The lord of the underworld is still alive at the moment, which means they have a common enemy. People in the Sumeru realm will not be so short-sighted in a short time. If one of his own is the first to start the war, I'm just afraid that the underworld will be able to fish in troubled waters. But Taisha said this with a trace of confusion on his face. Senior, but what? The immortal lord asked curiously. However, the Tianyuan realm was divided into three parts at the beginning, and now the Xianguang realm and the Sumi realm have appeared. Why is there no trace of the remaining Jinhui realm? Taisha murmured. Senior, don't be ridiculous. A Xianguang realm and a Sumeru realm are already terrifying enough. If we were to come to another world of the same level, I'm afraid it would be. The immortal lord said stiffly. But the words are not yet finished. In the chaos, there was another violent fluctuation, and in the extremely distant void, another huge world slowly emerged in front of everyone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 520. See this scene. The expression on the face of the immortal lord was completely frozen. He glanced at Taishu helplessly. The meaning is self-evident. It's over now, the senior has said it right. With the emergence of two worlds with unclear attitudes and terrifying strength, the earthly immortal realm is completely in danger. Of course, the Tianyuan realm may not be so bad, after all, the Tianji Tower exists. But what about the world you live in? Don't worry, as I said before, Senior Tianji Building Master will not sit idly by and ignore it. Taisha glanced at the immortal lord and said meaningfully. Then he glanced at the ruins of the underworld again and said softly, it doesn't make much sense to continue to stay here. We should go back. Just take a look at what the attitudes of the Sumeru realm and Jinhui realm are. That's fine. The immortal lord of immortality nodded. As he continued to stay in the Xianguang realm, he was also a little worried. Once the two realms went to war and he was not there, the situation in the earthly immortal realm would be one-sided. Of course. He asked himself, even if he was there, he would probably be of no use. Not big either. Shortly after the two left. Only then did Meng Qingzi stop with satisfaction. Almost all the resources in the underworld have been dug out, and my trip has been as expected. I have made a lot of money. After I return to the Tianyuan world, I can almost go sideways. I don't know what the attitudes of these two new worlds are. Meng Qingzi glanced in the direction of the Sumeru realm, his eyes flashing deep in his eyes. His thoughts were different from those of the immortal lord. In his opinion, it would be the best if a war broke out. This way. Isn't the opportunity for me to fish in troubled waters come again? Over time, maybe the time it takes for me to become a true immortal can be shortened a lot. That's all. Let's go back to Tianyuan world first. Estimate. The senior owner of TNG must know the situation in these two worlds. Meng Qingzi withdrew his gaze, then waved his hand to put away the formation. Then he took a step forward, and his body turned into a stream of light and rose into the sky. At the same time, true martial arts world. The Lu Imperial clan. This family has been in the Jinwu world for hundreds of thousands of years. Although it is not a long-standing inheritance, it still has some heritage. There is a great emperor in the family. Look from afar. In the Imperial clan, the clouds are steaming and the clouds are awe-inspiring, and the scene is myriad. There is endless fairy light blooming, illuminating the void, and everywhere is filled with a peaceful atmosphere. At this time, in one of the attics, a young man, wearing a jade crown, stood in front of the window, looking into the void in the distance. His eyes were deep, and he didn't know what he was thinking. "Young master, the information is clear." A respectful voice came. Hearing this, the young man turned around, slowly uttered one word, and said, "Speak." Outside the attic, the servant spoke and said quickly, "The true martial world is integrated with other worlds, as expected by the young master. It is not for no reason. Instead, he was pulled out of the chaos by someone using unnatural means. According to my inquiries, the person who took action seems to be a TNG building master from the Tianyuan world. The strength of that TNG building master is unfathomable. Before that, he had merged with many worlds. His purpose seems to be to create a supreme world." And what?" the young man asked calmly. "Moreover, in addition to our Jinwu realm, the worlds that have been integrated together include the Sumi realm and the Xianguang realm. In other words, the original Tianyuan realm has returned to its original state again." The servant said softly. "Oh. Is this happening?" The young man raised his eyebrows and said softly, "The reason why Tianyuan realm was broken in the past was said to be broken by a quasi-immortal emperor. And to be able to merge the world, could it be that the master of TNG building was a quasi-immortal emperor? The original Tianyuan realm can accommodate the existence of the immortal king. Naturally, the immortal king cannot break this huge world. If the TNG building master is really a quasi-immortal emperor, I am afraid things will be a bit troublesome. I don't know about this either. I think it will take someone else or the young master to go there in person to see through the details of the TNG building owner." The servant said respectfully. The young man was non-committal and said slowly, "If I remember correctly, the underworld should be covering the sky with one hand now in the Xianguang realm. If the Xianguang realm is also integrated, how can the underworld live in peace with the creatures in other worlds? The young master knows things like a god, and nothing can be hidden from the young master's eyes." The servant complimented and continued, "The Xianguang realm merged sometime earlier than the Jinwu realm, and a big war broke out between them and the earthly immortal realm. The result was that the earthly immortal realm was completely defeated, but what no one expected was that not long after, the underworld suddenly disappeared. According to others, there was a great war in the underworld. After the battle, the lord of the underworld was nowhere to be found, and the elites in the underworld disappeared completely. It was suspected that the owner of the TNG tower had taken action in secret." A look of awe flashed in the man's eyes. He glanced in the direction of Tianyuan world and murmured, "It seems that the water in these worlds is very deep. You go down and continue to inquire about the news. Once you have any results, report them to me immediately." "Yes." The servant respectfully accepted the order and quickly turned around and left. The moment he left, the aura of a great emperor on his body disappeared in a flash. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 521. After the servants left, the attic fell into silence. The young man stood in front of the window with his hands behind his hands. His eyes were deep and he didn't know what he was thinking about. After a long time, the man whispered, "As strong as the underworld, it was also destroyed. If I guessed correctly, the strength of the Lord of the underworld should be close to the realm of the immortal king. What is the origin of that TNG poster? He merges countless worlds, is it intentional or unintentional?" A series of questions appeared in my mind. The four words TNG Lozio seemed to have some kind of magic power that people could not ignore. Every time I thought of it, there was a feeling that all the secrets had nowhere to hide. It seemed. In the dark, there is a pair of ubiquitous eyes that are staring at him. Thinking of this, the man can't help but feel horrified. There are many secrets in him. If they are completely exposed, he will probably die without a burial place. How could a person who was above the immortal king and suspected of being a quasi-immortal emperor be so boring as to merge with the world? The man frowned. No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't come up with a clue. Logically speaking, shouldn't such a person be in seclusion all year round, preparing to break through to the next level? Having nothing to do, integrating the world, and benefiting hundreds of millions of living beings, what kind of routine is this? The fusion of worlds is indeed of great benefit to ordinary creatures and countless practitioners, but for people like the master of TNG, it is not of much benefit. After all, ordinary people cannot fuse in the highest world. As for some unconventional worlds, even if they are integrated, it will take a long time to merge into one. And because the master of TNG is too strong, the world after the integration will be of no use to him. No matter how you look at it, it is very difficult. Please. I hope he didn't come specifically for the underworld. The young man turned around. Not far from him, there was a table with a dark jade pen and a book lying there quietly. From the surface, there was nothing unusual. But upon closer inspection, there was nothing unusual. It seems that there are endless mysteries hidden in it, which makes people's minds and souls unable to help but fall completely into despair and find it difficult to control themselves. Someone comes. The man glanced at the table and said softly, "What are your orders, young master?" A voice came. Outside the door, a figure appeared, with a blood that could not be concealed, like a killing god returning from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. He stood there quietly, suppressing the world. His expression was extremely respectful, with a bit of piety, as if he was facing a god. He did not dare to show any disobedience. "Go find the Lord of the Underworld, don't let the master of TNG find his whereabouts first," the young man ordered. "Yes," the figure said respectfully, but then hesitantly said, "Young master, as far as we know, in addition to being powerful, the master of TNG seems to be good at deducing TNG. The subordinates are only afraid." The figure didn't finish speaking, but the meaning of the words was already self-evident. They were not 100% sure that they would bring the other party's whereabouts back in advance before the owner of TNG Tower calculated the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld. And with their strength, even if they find each other, there is nothing they can do against them. After all, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse, and the Lord of the Underworld is not someone they can provoke. "Do your best." The young man slowly spit out 4 words. "Yes." The figure nodded, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the void. This move did not alarm anyone. No one in the entire Lu Imperial clan found anything unusual. At the same time, in the Xianguang realm, in the chaos hundreds of millions of miles away, within the chaotic mist, several figures emerged. One of them had an extremely weak aura and unstable spirit, and seemed to be about to collapse at any time. Although the conditions of several people around him were better, they were not much better. These people were the Lord of the Underworld and several of his subordinates. When he was escaping, he found that several of his subordinates were still alive, so he rescued them smoothly. Although these people are no different from trash in the eyes of the Lord of the Underworld, they are still assistants. After all, he cannot do everything by himself, and there must always be someone to handle some things for him. Lord, your wounds. Just as a few people stood down, a subordinate stepped forward, supported the soul of the Lord of the Underworld, and said with concern, "No problem." The Lord of the Underworld waved his hand to signal others not to worry. He took a deep breath and looked back at the Xianguang realm, with a heart-stopping murderous intent blooming in his eyes. For everything that happened today, I will have to settle things with them sooner or later. Lord, we are not far away from the Xianguang realm now. It is very likely that Taishu will bring people to hunt us down. How about we go to other worlds to cause trouble for the time being? Someone suggested. The other worlds they talked about were nothing more than the Jinhui realm and the Sumi realm. These worlds were all split from the Tianyan realm. In the past, these worlds had some connections, and they knew each other well. Location. When the underworld swept the entire world, it was worried that other worlds would take action, so it broke all the space passages. But today is different from the past. They are homeless and cannot always wander in chaos. At present, Sumeru realm and Jinwu the world has undoubtedly become their best destination.